Yeah, well, welcome to 63. It's our fifth week in it. It's a 9-week series where we're exploring the people, the places, the events, the purpose of Jesus Christ. Each week we're taking a step further into who he was, how he was with people, and what that means for you and I in 2026. And so as we look at the encounter today that we're going to explore, I immediately was drawn back to the idea of like lunchroom trauma, okay? Now, I don't know if this happens anymore, where you like, my freshman orientation for my high school, when I showed up, they were walking us around, and they're like, you 8th graders are gonna love it here. Like, there's no cliques, everybody loves everybody, and they took us out to the quad, because that was where we all had lunch, grew up in California, nice weather, and they're like, and so here's the deal, the athletes, they all sit over there, and if you're in a band, you sit over here, and if you're a math nerd, because if you're into math, you're a nerd, if you're a math nerd, you sit over here, and I'm like, wait, I thought we were all gonna, like, there was no, and all of a sudden, I was exposed to, like, the trauma of having to choose where you're going to sit. So I talked to a number of people about this. I said, do you remember that? And almost everyone was like, yeah, that was horrible, right? So I don't know what it is today, how that plays out or looks like, but I want to ask you a question, right? Who did or who do you sit with at lunch? And we do a question on the morning. You turn to your neighbor and you're like, okay, this was my crew, or this is who I sit with. I realize some of you are very literal, and I'm not. And you might go, I don't sit with, what's this? I don't get, use your imagination for me for like a minute, okay? Who do or who did you sit with at lunch? We'll be back in 1 minute. What was your trauma? Take 10 seconds. I realize it's interesting, you know, I think about, in my generation, you didn't have a phone or anything, so it was all so social, and you had to kind of navigate. Probably still is today, but I was thinking this could also be called like church attendance trauma, and like, where are you going to sit? You're going to, all that. The dynamic's just there, because there's this thing at work within us that we sit with people who like us. That's like a preference. It's a human desire, the path of least resistance. We also sit with people who are like us. And this has a lot of implications for a life of following Jesus, deepening your faith and relationship with him, with loving our neighbor and reaching the next generation. Because I personally think it's difficult to maintain relationships in this bucket with the people I already naturally connect with, the people that are easy for me. And then I think about how hard it is to share a table with someone who has a different point of view about life, about what matters. And I think we are always becoming more ideologically diverse and more exposed to ideas and connected with other people. But at the same time, I think it feels like, I'll just say it feels like, it may not be true, I don't know what your experience is, but it feels like we're more divided, segmented, polarized than ever. Somehow, like every day, it can be like, how are we more today than we were yesterday? And I was looking at this, there's probably no like lower hanging fruit than politics to kind of throw this idea up, right? So I just pulled up some Pew data on our political distinctions. And this is 2 decades of rising partisan antipathy, like dislike. And the core idea here is that people in one party think people in the other party are incapable of morality, is sort of the framework here. So if you look at the Republican, the red side, the growth from 94 to 2022, 62% of Republicans think that Democrats are incapable of like being good for society. That's crazy. Okay, hold on. Democrats, you're feeling good right now if you're a Democrat. You're like, we're better than the Republicans, because you look up here and you see 54% of Democrats think that Republicans are no good for society. But then I've got to level the playing field here for the Democrats who are feeling good about themselves right now. They ask college students. Republicans, 2/3 of Republican college students said they would date a Democrat. All right? 1/3 of Democrat college students said they would date a Republican. So you can see how this kind of dynamic plays out. And I think I only share this to go, following Jesus is serious business. It completely intersects with every area of our lives, particularly how we view human beings. And the size of your table does determine, to some degree, the size of your faith. That's a very preacher-esque kind of thing to say. The size of your table determines the size of your faith. But I want us to lean into Jesus today and look at an encounter he has with someone who did not belong at his table, and see why I would say something like the size of your table determines the size of your faith. It's the story of the Samaritan woman, or the woman at the well. It comes out of the Gospel of John, is where we're going to be reading it from. There's 4 accounts of the life of Jesus, if you're not familiar: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. John is fantastic and mysterious and poetic and rich, and I hope you'll read it at some point of your life, in your life. And so John chapter 4, verse 3, this scene unfolds. Remember, now you're going to have to use your imagination, because these scenes unfold in real time. Actual Jesus, is having a actual conversation with a woman at a well in the middle of the day. And you have to allow yourself to get there and not get lost in the 90 seconds of the text, okay? So John chapter 4, verse 3. So Jesus left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. You always had to pass through Samaria when you were going to Galilee from Judea. And there was a route. So politically, if you step outside of the Bible and you look at the writings of the time, Jewish people did not go through Samaria. They stayed away. It was just the wrong side of the tracks. They were divided ethnically, they were divided religiously, they were divided politically. And so they just didn't go through. So there was a longer route you could take, and that was the route they took. But Jesus decides to go through Samaria. And right away, we're stuck. We culturally, we can't maybe connect with this right away, but right away we're stuck on, why? What's he up to here? Why doesn't he take the better route? Well, Jesus seeks out and saves the pushed out and excluded. This is a core conviction. Anytime you hear the name of Jesus Christ, this is right there. You read all 4 gospel accounts. There might be other stories that amp you up, and you're like, yeah, but Jesus also. I go, that's fine. This is the big one. Jesus seeks out and saves the pushed out and excluded. Let's just keep reading through John and kind of show you why I'd say that. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar. Near the plot of the ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. These are important details because Jacob and Joseph are significant figures in the history of the Samaritans and the Jewish people. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. If you've ever traveled to the Middle East and had the opportunity, I don't know if I'd call it an opportunity, to be outside in the middle of the day, it is scorching hot. Jesus is tired. He's hot. It's the middle of the day. He stops at this place for water. There's also this reality that no one else would be there. You didn't go to the well in the middle of the day. Even in our Kenyan partnership in Gotani in southeastern Kenya, people go to the watering spaces early in the morning or later in the day. You don't go in the middle of the afternoon. It's hot. The sun's beating down on you. So Jesus is going to be all alone at this well. And then a Samaritan woman came to draw water. And Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" And I love this as it unfolds. If you don't know what's happening here, this context is all out of place. Why is this lone woman coming in the middle of the day to draw water? And all of the sudden, enemies on every level are sitting at the water well together. Look at her response. The Samaritan woman said to him, "Well, you're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" Do you feel it? So division, even back then. For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. And Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." And I love, if you were here last week, we were just talking about the authority of Christ. That Christ has all authority, and that the Old Testament scriptures, which would have been the authority for the Jewish people and for the Samaritan people, that he stands on those and says, "I have come to fulfill these. I'm the authority." So he's going to help people. For example, he says that you've been told don't murder. But I tell you, don't even call your brother or sister a fool in your heart. Jesus is beginning to give us the meaning of what authority looks like. And so when he says to her, "If you knew the gift of God," and what a turn of events. Just put yourself in a situation. You're thirsty, and you ask someone for a drink of water. And they say, "Why are you asking me for a drink of water?" And the next thing out of your mouth is, "If you knew the gift of God and who it was that asked you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. This whole conversation amps up so fast. And it's a drawback or a callback to the Old Testament prophet Jeremiah, which the Samaritans and the Jews would have held dearly in their hearts. Listen to what Jeremiah says. My people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and they dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. And I was just sitting in this Jeremiah passage all week, and I was going, how familiar I am with that. There's two things I'm always drawn to do. One is to forsake that Jesus Christ actually has all life, hope, truth, and authority. To forsake that. And when I do that, my next step is to get these hands and start digging some cisterns and going, you know what, I'm gonna dig a well that can hold water. And sometimes it works, doesn't it? Until it doesn't. Well, Jesus is offering something different, the living water. And the woman says, sir, I'm a little confused right now. You have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. So where can you get this living water? And Jesus takes her further into who he is, and we really want to understand who he is. He says, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. If you're not familiar with the prophets in the Old Testament, the prophets carried one key purpose. They announced to the people how they were missing it. It was just that. It was like, you're missing it. You're pouring all your energy and all your life into something, and you're missing it. And there was this prophet Ezekiel, and in chapter 47, Ezekiel gives this prophetic imagination. That's just another word for hope. For the people, that they could believe that life in God could be full and flourish. And all of these pictures are about water, living water, living water. And here's Jesus saying, I'm that living water. Ezekiel talks about the water flows east through the region of the Dead Sea, and as it gets to the salty water, it makes the salty water clean. That's how living this water is. And as that water gets clean, the fish are in abundance and the life flourishes. And then it says, along that river, every single tree, let me just read what it says. Fruit trees of all kinds grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves never wither. Their fruit never fails. Every month they bear fruit because the water that flows to them, the living water, their fruit will serve for food and their leaves for healing. There's a subtext in this conversation that Jesus is having. He's saying, I have something that you need. I have something that you wouldn't even guess is available to you. You're out here digging cisterns that can't even hold water, and I've got living water that will never run out. Well, they have this conversation about worship. She starts to go, how is it you are talking to me? And you even say that I'm not even allowed to know God because I'm a Samaritan and I can't go to all the special places, the temple and the places you're supposed to go to be good with God. So, and Jesus says, tell you what, go get your husband. And I'll explain it to both of you. He says, go call your husband and come back. And her reply is like, well, I have no husband, she replied. And Jesus said to her, you're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband, and what you've just said is quite true. So I don't know if you run into this when you read the Bible, but I mean, just like you just roll right over it. There's something happening here. Jesus is setting up a divine moment for this woman. Now we assume in this text moral failure. That's probably not a great assumption. What I would instead suggest to you is that there are at least 3 cultural reasons that she could have had 5 husbands. Whatever the reason, it's not significant. What's significant is that she is socially exposed, she's very vulnerable, and she's relationally alone. She's come to the well in the middle of the day by herself on purpose because no one else wants to be with her at the well when all the other women go in the morning. And does she want to start every day full of shame and the side eye and knowing that she's she's at the well in the middle of the day, and Jesus brings it right to, I don't know what yours is, but to her, right to the thing that she says, there's no way this part of me can ever be redeemed for good. What's beautiful is Jesus doesn't avoid her. He seeks her out. And he doesn't keep the focus on her marital history. He keeps the focus on what he can give her. Well, the woman says, I know that the Messiah called the Christ is coming. You see her faith? And when he comes, he will explain everything to us. What happens next is seismic. In all 4 accounts of the Gospels, Jesus Christ reveals that he is the Savior of the world to this one woman first that we know of. This is the first time. Look what he says. Then Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am that Messiah that you're waiting for. And what's so wild about this is, he's had crowds. 20,000 people have gathered around him. Is that not when you grab the mic and you say, everybody, the Messiah you've been looking for, I am he. He doesn't do it there. He waits till he's alone with this desperate and isolated woman, and she says, I just need to know God. And he says, guess what? I'm him. The woman states her belief that the coming Messiah would reveal everything to them. And Jesus lets her know that he's already here. Now, if you're reading this Gospel of John, you understand, or you can start to see that the woman is standing, I think, wildly unsuspecting, on the brink of a much deeper gulf or gap than what divides a Jew and a Samaritan having this conversation at the well. It's the gulf between him, the author of life, the living water, God himself, the Savior of the world, and her, a beat down, broke down person digging cisterns that can't hold water. And she cannot yet understand the offer that Jesus has made for her. It's the offer that what he has will quench not just our natural desire, but it will quench the deep, deep places in our hearts that can only be satisfied by him. The psalmist in Psalm 42 writes it this way: as the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? What a dramatic twist for this woman. I believe Jesus is just demonstrating to us through the scriptures how he sees all people. Because then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back into town and said to the people, come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? One person says it this way. It's a story of a woman who came to get some water and went back to her town with the whole well. It's worth thinking about. I don't watch The Chosen, but every now and then I'll go into a clip and I cry a whole bunch and things like that. So I'm going to actually pull up the clip of this scene because I think our imaginations disserve us and how powerful this interaction is. So if you haven't seen it, it's about 6 minutes long. It's a little different for one of our messages on a Sunday, but just sit back, pull out your popcorn, recline your seat, and really allow yourself to see the power of what unfolded.
Would you give me a drink? Did you hear me?
That's bad, huh?
What?
You, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a Samaritan, and a woman.
I'm sorry. I should have said please.
You know, it's not safe for you to be alone out here.
Nor you. Why haven't you come with others? Why so late in the day? Don't women come to the wells in the cool of the morning?
Yeah, well, none of them will be seen with me, so I have to come out now, in the heat, as you have so kindly reminded me.
Why won't they be seen with you?
Long story.
I'd still like a drink of water if you can spare it.
Amazing what a parched throat will do. Aren't I unclean to you? Won't you be defiled by this vessel?
Maybe some of my people say that about your women, but I don't.
Yeah? And what do you say?
I say if you knew who I am, you'd be asking me for a drink.
Really?
And I would give you living water.
Would. Except that you have nothing to draw water with, and this is a deep well. Besides, what do you need from me if you have your own supply of living water?
Long story.
But Jewish water is better than Samaritan water.
That's not what I
Are
said.
you a better man than our ancestor Jacob, who dug this well? Your water is better than his?
I know Jacob. And everyone who drinks this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks the water that I give him will never be thirsty again.
Wouldn't that be nice?
The water I give will become in a person a spring of water welling up to eternal life.
Really?
Yes, really.
Prove it.
First, go and call your husband and come back. I will show you both.
I don't have a husband.
You are right. You've had 5 husbands. And the man you're living with now is not your husband.
Oh, I see. You're a prophet. You're here to preach at me.
No.
Usually the one good thing about coming here alone is I can escape being condemned.
I'm not here to condemn you.
I've made mistakes. Too many. But it's men like you who have made it impossible for me to do anything about it.
How?
Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain. But you Jews insist Jerusalem is the only place for true worship.
They say that because the temple is there.
Exactly where we're not allowed.
I'm here to break those barriers. And the time is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father.
So, where am I supposed to go when I need God? I've never received anything from God, but I couldn't thank him even if I did.
Anywhere. God is spirit. And the time is coming and is now here that it won't matter where you worship, but only that you do it in spirit and truth. Heart and mind, that is the kind of worshiper he's looking for. It won't matter where you're from or what you've done. Do you believe what I'm telling you?
Until the Messiah comes and explains everything and sorts this mess out, including me. I don't trust in anyone.
You're wrong when you say that you've never received anything from God. This Messiah you speak of, I am he. The first one was named Ramin. You were a woman of purity who was excited to be married. But he wasn't a good man. He hurt you. And it made you question marriage and even the practice of your faith.
Stop it.
The second was Farzad. On your wedding night, his skin smelled like oranges. And to this day, every time you pass by the oranges in the market, you feel guilty for leaving him. Because he was the only truly godly man you've been with. But you felt unworthy.
Why are you doing this?
I have not revealed myself to the public as the Messiah. You are the first. It would be good if you believed me.
You picked the wrong person.
I came to Samaria just to meet you. Do you think it's an accident that I'm here in the middle of the day?
I am rejected by others.
I know. But not by the Messiah.
And you know these things because you are the Christ. I'm going to tell everyone.
I was counting on it.
Spirit and truth.
Spirit and truth.
It won't be all about mountains or temples.
Soon, just the heart.
You promise.
I promise.
I was talking to someone after the first service, and we both admitted that when it comes to Scripture, our desire to be faithful to it often makes our imaginations very small, and it's one of the beautiful things about something like The Chosen. There was a lot added in there if you didn't notice, but I hope you were able to connect with what happened at that well in this account that I just read to you. I want to take an old idea with some modern language and explain what I see unfolding here and why it matters to us. It's the idea of something called a moral circle. The moral circle is simply this, that you only have so much kindness and goodness and mercy to give, so you give it to those inside your moral circle. Let's look at it like this. Give me a second here. Let's look at it like this. The image is important on this one. And catch your breath. We're almost there. Well, I'll roll through some slides quickly, but you'll see them as we go. Moral circle fundamentally works like this. There's you, and then there's the people around you. And the closer people are to you, especially like in relationship and belief and experience, they tend to be inside your moral circle. So of course, like your immediate family is going to be in there. Now, you and I both know, though, that there are times when the people in your immediate family, there's so much tension or brokenness that they end up being pushed outside of your moral circle. So family alone does not mean that someone's in your moral circle. It just means that you draw a circle around you that limits who gets your love. Let's describe it that way. And then everybody outside of that, they're kind of a rando. That you're like, well, they're out there. I mean, there's some, but they're not in my moral circle. So break it down like this. Let me give you an illustration to kind of show how it works. There's people who get your patience. They get your benefit of the doubt. Oh, that's good. We're there. We're too far ahead, though. We're almost in the hive mind. Let me back this up and let me get us to the right place. All right, so if you take a look right there, you can see your moral circle. There's the people they're going to get your patience. They're going to get your benefit of the doubt. They're going to get your grace, even though that you're going to be like, oh, I got to give them another shot because I want life to work with them. And then there's everybody else, some 8 billion people or something like that, right? So it works like this. Two different people can make the same mistake or have the same conviction or the same belief, and you can have two different reactions for them. So you go, again, my example would be, there's a new steak place in town. You love steak. So you and some friends find out that one of your close people gets a job serving at this steak restaurant. Like, awesome, we're going to go their opening night. We're going to be there. We're going to cheer them on. We're going to have a big table. They show up. They're nervous. They barely have the menu memorized right now, right? And they mess up your drink orders. You're joking with them the whole time. Your appetizers come out cold, right? Then you order your steak, and you like your steak like rare because you think it makes you a man or something like that, right? But they bring out your steak and it's like well done. And you're like, oh, you messed up the steak order, you're gonna get it. And there's a lighthearted joking, and then the night's over and everyone goes, oh, you know what, we love them. Let's leave them a little tip to cheer them up. And you leave like a 21% tip because they're inside your moral circle. A couple weeks later, you go to a different restaurant. Get another new server. This time, they're identical. They're the same stage of life, same gender, same everything. They're just nothing to you. They mess up your drink orders, and you're like, man, what an idiot. Your appetizers come late, and you're like, should we talk to the manager? Your steak is messed up. Steak, it's not cheap. Your steak is messed up. And in your mind, you start going 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10. You know what? Let's not even leave a tip. Let's leave a note. Learn how to do your job. Now, you wouldn't do that. You're good people, right? But you can see what happens or what's the difference? Well, how can two different people make the same mistake but get a different reaction from you? How does that unfold? And I think it's instinctively, our path of least resistance. We love our kind, people who are like us and people who think like us. So in my life, there's my mom, my friends, my brother, my community. They're in my moral circle. And then there's somebody else's mom, somebody else's friend, somebody else's brother, and I have no grace or patience for them. We justify this behavior for two different people because we prioritize people who vote like us or worship like us, who think like us or talk like us or agree with us. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Jesus didn't do this. Jesus didn't draw in a moral circle and decide who was in it, because if he did, that story we just read would have been wildly different. There would have been no interaction. He would have never crossed through Samaria. He wouldn't have shown her any kindness, and he would not have revealed to her that she is not a broken cistern, but that she can hold the very water of life. Jesus expanded tax collectors, Roman soldiers, sinners, outcasts, Samaritans. Somehow, every time the order got messed up, Jesus said, I love that you're serving me. Every time things went wrong, he said, you're welcome at this table. Account after account after account of Jesus Christ. He never uses the term moral circle. He probably laughs at the idea. He just didn't have one. That's a pretty big shift. Jesus treated everybody like family. So the question doesn't become, are you a loving person? I think that's such an easy question to skirt over. Yeah, I'm a loving person, because your mind goes in my moral circle. The question is, how wide is your circle? Our mission is to inspire each other to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship with him, to love our neighbor, and to reach the next generation. So I think about a community of 600 people who come together, a couple hundred students and kids here, and I go, if we all trusted that Jesus' way was better and that he had living water, and living water does one thing, it satisfies you and then flows out of you. If we did that and we're committed to not making excuses, what we would see is a church community in Southeast Boise that has a lot of impact and a lot of positive influence and makes a difference on the sports fields and in the schools and in workplaces and in the neighborhoods. But we would find that the more we reject the moral circle way, which is not the way of Jesus, we would just expand the goodness of what we could bring. We can treat everybody like family. I think, by the way, you do that really well. But I don't think we should give ourselves a pass. Because if you're anything like me, every day I have to decide, does this person get my love? Am I going to treat them like my mom? Or am I going to treat them like some random lady who's in my way? How am I going to walk that out? Because I know that I sit with people who like me. And I sit with people who are like me. And I cannot escape Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the book of Acts, which is the story of the church, and all the letters that follow, that Jesus Christ crossed lines when he could have built fences. And I know I totally shifted like metaphors or word pictures from tables to fences, but I just couldn't think of another way to say it. Jesus was a line crosser. He wasn't a fence builder. Here's the good news for you if you're a follower of Jesus. Your view of God will be as small as the size of your table. If you want a vast, expansive, flourishing understanding of your Savior, then you make more room at your table. This was the way of the church from day one. So, I have a prayer for you, or a question for you to sit in, and we're going to share communion, which is the most beautiful example of how big the table of Jesus Christ is, because you're invited to it. Not because you earned it or came to church at the right time or did the right thing or took the right class, but because of him. Where has fear, not faith, determined the size of your table? And if Jesus were arranging it, who'd be sitting there that makes you uncomfortable? The good news is, I think many of you would say, I live in this tension and I fight it. And I love that about this community, about you. And some of you aren't followers of Jesus. And you're like, oh, but so this is really a very distinct message for what it means to follow Jesus. But if you're not following Jesus, you would have to agree. His world, the way he does life, the way he sees people, it is always better. Don't you want to live in a world that's moving in this direction? So where has faith, fear, not faith, determined the size of your table? And if Jesus were arranging your table, honest question, who'd be sitting there that makes you uncomfortable? And then we'll be back in a minute.